Right, back with part 2 of the lossless scaling video. Just running through the settings here. I'm going to start off on basic medium settings. I've tried to do all the demonstrations so that there's plenty of bikes and plenty of stuff going on the track. Selected Portimao because from what I can tell, this is the worst track in the game for frame drops. You won't sort of see it straight away, but when you get towards the end of the lap, that will suddenly drop right off. So I've recorded some laps of the game, and then what I've done, I thought I'd just talk over it rather than try and do it while I'm playing. Now, if you look at the bike on standard medium settings, you'll see there's a bit of ghosting on the shadow where the rider is. So like I said in the last video, you do have to sort of do a little bit of messing about to get the right settings. And as I say, this is the worst track in these wet conditions. This sort of pushes everything sort of as hard as it can. I limited the frame rate in the game to 60 FPS because if it starts generating frames it don't need, that ain't going to do anything a lot of favours. It's only a 60 Hz screen, single player, so that's fine. You can see it just dropped a little bit there. It's just dropped down to 55. But I'd still say, even with this being the worst track, this is probably still a big improvement over anything it was doing on the without that. You see there was a little bit of a drop there. When you get around, as you go around this next corner, that's where you get the biggest frame drops. You'll see it, here it goes, there you go, we just dropped down to 44 there. So that's about as bad as it gets. If the ghosts there at the bottom don't bother you, then you could probably just play it on medium settings. At the end of the video, I'll do it in dry weather with Bruno, which is what I had it on the last test. So you can see how much better it is there. I ain't decided yet because I'm still editing the video. I might even do a side by side, or I might do a separate video where it's side by side. It does take flipping time to do all that, and half the time people just want to get the general gist of it anyway. So what I've done here, I've kept it on medium settings, and then I've turned the anti-aliasing down to the FXA. And you will see what happens then is, although you won't get that ghosting down the bottom with your shadow, what you'll see is the crowd when you look at them look a bit shit now. It's not when the boards at the side of the track don't look great. So I can't remember. I was sort of trying to play the game but look at the frame counter at the same time. But I think the frame drops are probably not quite as bad. Anyway, this is one way of getting rid of that ghosting if it bothers you without sort of dropping the general performance, provided you can handle it not looking as good round the sides of the track. But you know, again, I mean, you're talking about a 500, as I said in the last video, a laptop what cost me £500 5 years ago. It's only got 4 gigabytes of video RAM, and that it's not doing too bad. I personally think the integrated GPU as well is not too bad. It's doing a good little job. CPU's not running that hot either, not really, because that, I know it's 87 degrees there looking at the temps, but that CPU does generally run hot. I am running it with the hyperthreading turned off as well, by the way. With the Intel CPUs I've found on laptops, they do get really hot until you get to the, I think the Core Ultras are not too bad, but these older ones you need to turn them down. Anyway, here we go, we're coming round the corner again. Let's have a look, the frame drop. Yeah, I mean, it still sort of hit 45 there, but not for as long. I'd say it was a little bit smoother. So yeah, you've got to kind of pick your poison a little bit. As I say, this is the worst track. If you're doing other tracks in the game, it's probably not going to be as bad. Certainly Bruno's not. Most of the time I've played the game, I've probably been on my desktop, so you know, I haven't extensively tried them all on a laptop. In terms of what bike setup am I using, if you wanted to know, I'm just using the general Moto3 setup that I done, which works really on all the tracks in all weathers. It's not necessarily the best one for a particular track. So there I've gone to low settings. I've cranked the anti-aliasing up. That's probably what you'd have on high or ultra. And then I've gone for medium detail there. So at least the bike kind of still looks good when you're near it. But you're not sort of sacrificing too much going with the low settings on everything else. And you're not got that sort of ghosting effect either on the bike. But having that higher anti-aliasing does use a little bit more juice, so you will get a bigger frame drop here and there. But so it's one of them, you kind of got to offset one thing against another and see where you come out. I mean, I could overclock this graphics card a little bit, but it's kind of like the cards matched fairly well to the CPU, so if you overclock it, you don't really get a lot more performance. Oh, it looks like I overshot the corner there a little bit. I mean, that's, if I was personally playing this track on this laptop, this is the settings I would go with. I would probably sacrifice a little bit. I mean, you see it drop there at 48. And I'd probably make a little bit of a sacrifice and just go with that. If every single track was like it for the whole game, I'd probably think about going with the low settings. Yeah, we're going to get to that bit. We'll see how much it drops off now in a second. It's generally not too bad. You've got to remember the laptop was recording while it was playing this, so if it looks a little bit stuttery on the replay, that is partly, you know, because the CPU is working pretty hard there. So it's dropped down to 43. It's just that you've had more frame drops during other parts of the track where you weren't really getting them. Anyway, that's this is worst case scenario. Lots of bikes on the screen. Obviously if you qualified first and you just shot away, it won't look as bad. Lots of bikes on the screen. You're in wet conditions, which probably makes it a little bit harder on the card. And yeah, that's what you got. So for the next bit, if you're still watching, we'll go to Brno, which is where my original test when the game come out was. Just let it select it. And we'll stick it on clear conditions. Like I say, I might do a side-by-side comparison video, but that does take a bit more editing. So for the time being, I'll just chuck this one out there. It's not going to be that hard, is it, just to look at the other one? I ain't going to bother messing around with low settings. We've just gone straight in medium settings, but I've gone straight for the better anti-aliasing, which is obviously going to use a bit more juice. So obviously having to just run through the setup quick there. Right. So medium, crank the low TSR up, whatever that stands for. Riders have completed. If I was playing it on my laptop, most likely, or that particular laptop, the settings we're on now is the settings that I would go with for most tracks. I don't know why everyone was suddenly slowing down so much there. It threw me off a little bit. I haven't ridden the Moto3 bikes for quite a while. So you can see we're sort of dropping. There was a little bit of a drop there down to 52. I think you can see the trees are drawing a little bit in the background, but that could just be because it is on medium settings rather than that's any sort of weakness of any of the hardware. They definitely look like they're drawing a lot better than what they did though without the lossless scaling on. And we're generally holding a pretty solid 60 FPS for the most part. So yeah, I mean, compare that to the old video. It's a bit harder to see the frame rate because I've just got a little frame counter up on the right hand side on that one, the older Steam counter. This new one is a lot better. It sort of shows you the lows and that a little bit there as well. But yeah, just dropped there at 53 on it. But I'd say overall, you could probably buy that laptop for most likely about 200 quid second hand off somebody on Facebook. For a £200 laptop, I think this is pretty acceptable. And like I say, bear in mind it was recording the game at the same time on the Xbox recorder. You'd have slightly better performance if you weren't doing that as well. And then finally, I just sort of cranked the settings up a little bit more just to see how it'd handle it. Again, I went with high this time because I did do high on the other test. Again, I did whack the anti-aliasing up to the low TSR. So technically, if you was comparing like for like, this has got slightly higher anti-aliasing setting on compared to the other test. So it's definitely showing a big improvement. And there, with all them bikes on the screen, look, it's still only dropped to 57. I'd say this is pretty impressive. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that the lossless scaling is a game changer, and I'd probably go as I just went to 49 there. I'd go as far as to say that really, for me, without the lossless scaling, I wouldn't have said that laptop was probably good enough for me to want to play MotoGP 25 on it. You know, and I didn't, to be fair, apart from that test. I was always playing it on my main desktop PC. But with this lossless scaling activated, even like with it dropping down to 50 FPS and that a little bit here, I would be quite happy rather than have to go out to my man cave if I just fancy playing in the living room. Not being too unsociable, I'd probably say that this is acceptable for me. I'd be quite happy to probably play a lot of the game like this. I mean, yeah, you got some frame drops there. It just went to 52, but it's reasonably sort of smooth. It's not like a real stuttery drop when it does go. Yeah, I mean, you've gone down to 48. But there's a lot of trees and things going on in the background. You've got a few bikes in front of you. You know, yeah, 45. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of detail there. Anyway, I would say if it hasn't convinced you, if you weren't convinced to try lossless scaling, you ought to be convinced now. I think, as I said on the last video, my main sort of laptop now has got an RTX 5050, and that let me go up like one whole lot of settings. I can't remember if I'm up on high, probably. And that'll literally hold a solid 60 with no drops at all. Whereas before I had to go down to medium, I think. So there you have it. I think that is the end of the video.